Hello, you beautiful Aunt Bessies. Welcome back to Couch Potatoes. Today, we want to take you on a journey of perfect imitation. Masters and Padawans, the students are passing the master, and does Lies of P officially break the From Software monopoly on Souls-like games? Let's take a little walk down memory lane. The year's 2015. H1Z1 makes a relatively quiet breakthrough with what is widely considered the first Battle Royale game. A game that would inspire an entire genre I bet most people have never heard of. Or at least you hadn't until 2017's PlayerUnknown's Battleground was to hit Windows and Steam for early access. After this game gained an insane amount of traction, it was still in beta until 2018. Many of the big shooter titles would seem to be treating it as a game that would lose the public's interest, many of them still probably looking for a way to integrate it as a limited mode in their own games. PUBG's limelight would fade before it had even reached official release, as Fortnite would drop their kid-friendly version of this game that would spark a lawsuit from PUBG for being too similar. They lost, as you can't exactly copyright a genre of game. And boom, the birth of BR Wars. Call of Duty Blackout, Apex Legends, Call of Duty Warzone. So the master, the creator, has been knocked off their pedestal and kicked to the curb as better and better publishers create their own twists and versions of what would become the #1 gaming genre in the world. So, where exactly am I going with this? Souls-like games have taken a much slower approach to a recently fainter echo of the BR boom. Bandai Namco's developer From Software in 2009 releases Demon Souls, which gained a small and consistent cult-like following. It was a punishing yet rewarding experience of skill and perverse gameplay that came with a respect of true gamer status for those who dared to challenge it. It was more than just that though. Even in its first attempt at a new type of experience, this game had impeccable rhythm, timed attacks, enemy variety, level design that seems to loop back to previous areas that seem like a never-ending maze of death. The premise of dying and trying again, getting a little further, just enough to make a small change to your level or your weapon, just to die to the same boss, had a very unforgiving yet irresistible charm to it. Miyazaki had created something truly beautiful, and this would inspire him to create a plethora of games with the Dark Souls trilogy. Bloodborne and, most recently, Elden Ring. Each game with a similar yet different twist on the genre in the making. Sekiro was also made, but we'll get back to this game later as they changed some vital yet notable things in the core mechanics. Just like the BR boom, this inspired competition. These games had a rabid and loyal fanbase, even if it wasn't yet to reach its potential until Elden Ring ran away with last year's Game of the Year award, all of which missed the magic, or to quote the Nitro Rifle, Andy Cortez, the From Software source. There were games that took this premise of how the mechanics worked and tried to integrate them into a new game entirely. Games like Remnant, which was a third-person shooter, or Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which just thought that their game would work with some ideas borrowed from Miyazaki. All were good games, and I take nothing away from them, but they don't stand up to the From Software efforts. There's just something about them that stands out. As previously mentioned, level designs seem to lead you down a maze that you feel like you're scraping your way through, only to lead you back to where you started with a new shortcut unlocked that gets you to the boss battle a little bit quicker, only for you to die far too many times before you finally nail the attack patterns down to a T, and you spend your time dodge rolling, learning all about iframes and being invincible for 0.2 seconds through your roll just to land one hit at a time, until your victory was so well earned that you felt like you had the battle for real. That, added with the beautifully voice acted NPCs that all seem to be speaking in an old English storybook or a Game of Thrones series, and varying terrifying enemies. This game definitely keeps your attention even if the story makes no sense whatsoever. Sekiro added some pepper to the salt in the wound. All seasoned Souls-like players were eagerly anticipating the latest game From Software was developing. However, it felt like even the best were taken back to school. The setting had changed to a ninja samurai theme, but there still lies this gothic undertone. However, that's just the surface. We have a few new mechanics. We now have a grapple, but only a samurai sword with no weapon variety. However, the biggest change came in the fighting. Experienced players thought dodging and attacking would lead us to victory, but this only led to barely making it through simple enemies and a mini-boss here and there. While we were successfully parrying an attack or two and landing shots, it weren't until we made it to Lady Butterfly that the penny actually dropped. This game felt familiar with attack patterns and combo sets, but during the first real boss battle, you suddenly realised that this actually is a rhythm game. The parrying had a button press that was a lot more like Guitar Hero. The parry seemed to have a rhythm that, with the clashing of swords, almost was its own melody. This kind of blew my mind and gave me an appreciation to a completely new flavour to an already fantastic genre. This again sparked some clones, most recently Wulong Fallen Dynasty. So, now the part you've been all so patient to hear about. Lies of P, created by NeoWiz Games and Round 8 Studio. Nope, never heard of them before this either. Even trying to find out about them online too. There's not much to look at. They're based in South Korea and have had a list of games come out, all of which I've never heard of. The game director, Choi Ji-won, I've absolutely butchered that name, has worked on the game Lost Ark. The development team is around 100 people and the game was in development for around 3 years, and they're big fans of Souls-like games. No shock really, but this really shows in the game. They've done all their homework and got an A star all the way. The set and setting is around Carlo Collodi's novel of The Adventures of Pinocchio, and no, I'm not talking about Disney's. However, it has been brought into a futuristic world where puppets are more animatronic, a robot-like tone with familiar characters. However, the soul of the characters and the gothic setting is more like Bloodborne, even down to talking with silhouettes in windows. This game feels like the closest thing to its successor we've ever seen. However, it differs massively in combat. While it seems to keep the fighting speed of a Bloodborne or a Dark Souls game, the parrying system is straight out of Sekiro. This game is very visually pretty. The reflections and the colour palettes, this really feels like a From Software game. But there is a fake knockoff feeling lurking somewhere in the background. Maybe it's because, it's just not on the startup screen and it feels a little too familiar that it could be considered a mimic like a lurking ditto. That being said, I've given up critiquing the game. The level design is very good, and it's not Miyazaki, but it's still very close. The enemies are cool as shit, and 60 frames per second feels like a dream when you're missing Bloodborne on a console. The parrying makes it fresh, and that combined with all previously mentioned, this game is an instant hit. Can't wait to get all the way to the end. The story is about on par with FromSoft, not blowing my socks off, but still interesting enough. However, the gameplay and aesthetics of the game has me weak at the knees. Souls-like games have a genre name that deliberately give credit to From Software games and creates a bias. But if this is a first attempt at trying to one-up From Software and knocking them off the pedestal as king, I'm all for it. Despite the company's lack of information and questionable background, I hope to see more from them in the future. Like, follow and subscribe for more bollocks to follow, and we are Couch Potatoes.